Let's get underway. It's 12:02. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Jay Holder, Executive Director of Running USA, and we're excited today to share a new initiative that Running USA has launched with the membership, and hopefully that the members can benefit from. To give a little backstory, Running USA historically, over the course of its first couple of decades, put out reports on finisher numbers in the running industry. That stopped about 5 years ago. And when our new team came on board, we felt really strongly about coming up with a way to bring that back. So we're partnering with our friends at Athlinks, part of the Lifetime Fitness company, to pull finisher data and to get as complete of a picture as we think we can get on trends that are happening throughout the running industry. Again, this is finisher data, and it's from events across the country, from 5Ks to marathons. Michael Clemens is our Director of Operations here at Running USA. And Michael is, if you were here early on in the call, is a self-proclaimed data nerd. He's going to be taking the lead on filtering through this information, putting out reports on a fairly regular basis. And he's going to walk us through today what we can expect, what members can get out of this, and how you can interpret this information. Michael, I'll toss it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. So as Jay said, my name is Michael Clemens. My pronouns are he, him. I am the Director of Operations for Running USA based out of Louisville, Kentucky. So hope to see a lot of you in my hometown in the upcoming February for our conference. So quick conference plug, our prices go up on May 31st. So make sure you're registered if you haven't already registered. We're going to have a lot of this data that we're going to be able to present at conference and before then. So I'm really excited about this. Along with my role, I started on board with Running USA full-time in December of 2023. Prior to that, I was in a graduate program at U of L. Still am in a graduate program at University of Louisville for educational leadership. So my emphasis is in sport administration. I hopefully by the end of this calendar year will be Dr. Clemens, and am really excited about this research opportunity. I know, as a lot of you know, we speak very anecdotally in our industry. We say, well, that's kind of what we're seeing at our races. But we want, as Running USA, to be a guide for the industry, to not just say, here's what we think we see, but what does the data actually show us? And that's where this partnership with Athlinks is going to be very beneficial to us. So I'm going to share my screen right here and take us through just a little bit about what the partnership includes and what it all really entails, and then how it can benefit you as a member, as a industry leader, as someone within the running space who wants to know how our sport's doing and wants to know the data behind the events. So first off, give a little overview of Athlinks. As Jay said, they are owned by Lifetime. This data set that they have has over 300 million individual finisher results. That dates back to 1960. So that includes almost 500,000 events themselves, over 481,000 events. But when we're talking about that, we're talking about only timed events. It doesn't have in there your color runs, your tough mudders that may not be timed, because Athlinks, what they do, they own ChronoTrack, so they have a timing software. But if a race isn't using ChronoTrack timing software, they have to go out and pull that data from the website's finisher results and bring that into the Athlinks portal. So it's not going to just automatically upload every single race immediately after it happens. It will add those races in. The Athlinks team, bigger races will add them in automatically. Smaller races, and when we talk smaller, it's 500 or less, they oftentimes have to get a request from a participant to add in that data. So they're not going to know about a small 20-person community 5K that's timed unless one of those 20 finishers requests that result be added into Athlinks. So it's not going to hit every race, but we are going to get a large chunk of the results of timed road running races across the United States. So it's going to be looking at data all over the US. This is just a screenshot. I'm not going to show you the full portal, but this is kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at when we look at the data. It has different tabs for demographics, for where we can look at your individual races and see what how the breakdowns are for year by year comparisons. We can do year over year for the industry overall. So I'm going to point out a few things that are really important to note in this dashboard that we have. We have our event year. We can break down by date range. So we, as I'll show you later, can look at month by month. We can look at quarter by quarter because we know our industry kind of works on a cycle where you may have the spring racing season, the fall racing season, a little bit lighter in the summer and winter. We can do that breakdown. We can look at the race distance. So we can see by 5K, by 10K, by mile, by half marathon, by ultra marathon. And then the race category type is going to give us road running. It's going to let us break down into fun run if a race is classified as a fun run, but still timed. It's going to break down trail running, cycling, multi-sport, and ChronoTrack times some stuff outside of just running. So it's going to allow us to pull out just when we're looking at road running and really focus on road running. We can see the way that I have this broken out right now. It's showing 222 million finishers in the system. You'll also notice where it says parent events and events. Those numbers are very different. The reason for that, when we are looking at events, we're going to be looking at the parent events a lot of the times. For example, the Walt Disney World Marathon, that is the parent event. It's going to have the Goofy 5K, the Dopey 10K, the half marathon, the full marathon, the Dopey challenge, the Goofy challenge. All of those are going to be their own individual event. But that parent event is going to be the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend. So for a lot of us, we have a full race weekend that's going to have many different events in them. But when we advertise it as our overall event weekend. So that's where that parent event and that event breakdown. The races, we can see even more there. That's going to be if a 5K has a wheelchair division in it, if it has if it separates out the run and the walk, if it separates out further along those lines, those races are going to live within the events, which are then going to live within the parent event. So when we talk about the data that we're showing, it's going to be either that parent events, or sometimes we'll even break it down into the event, just depending on what we're looking at. We're also going to see average race size. So you can see here the number of average race size for a different category. So we could look at our race distance of 5K and see, well, what's the average race size of a 5K? What's the average race size of a half marathon? And break it down that way. We'll also have this little graph here that'll show us there's a bunch of events out there that have just 0 to 100 participants that have timed across the finish line. So a large portion of those, we have a smaller portion of events that are 5,000 plus that are in there. So we can kind of break down based off of that. And then it will show us, we have 51 editions of the New York City Marathon in this, one of those being, I think during COVID, it kind of messed it up with the virtual year, but we can see Boulder of their 44 years, there are over 1.4 million finishers who've crossed that finish line, and then the average event size of each of those. And we can really break things down to a granular level based off of a lot of these different categories and classifications in there. And I see somebody has a Q&A. We'll get to those at the end. So feel free to drop the Q&As in, and Jay will come back on and we'll go through some of those Q&As at the end. So what is available for us and what isn't available? That's really important for you to know as you're asking us for reports, what we can figure out and what we can't figure out. We can figure out date ranges year-to-year comparisons. Like I told you, we can look at 2019 versus 2023, March 2019 versus March 2023. We can do a finisher number range. So analyze events by size of these are the events that are 5,000 and bigger. These are the events that are 1,000 to 5,000. That's something that's not lost on us at Running USA. And coming from Louisville, coming from the Louisville Sports Commission and the Urban Bourbon Half Marathon being a smaller race, we want to make sure us as Running USA is not forgetting about these smaller races, that we're looking at some of this data, not just for the Boulder Boulders and the New York Marathons of the world, but for the Secret City Marathons of the world, the Urban Bourbon or half marathons, the Urban Bourbon half marathons of the world, and really able to look at events by size. We also can look at geographic location or region. So we can break it down to what does California look like? What does Florida look like? What are differences in the races that are going on there? Are we seeing more 5Ks in one region versus another region has more marathons? We can break it down by gender as long as the finisher data breaks it down by gender. Same thing for age. As long as the finisher data includes that age, we can break it down by age. We also can look at finishing time trends. We had a publication come to us recently and say, well, we've heard that finishers at the Boston Marathon got slower in 2023 than they were, or 2024 than they were in 2019. We can look at the industry overall and we're able to go back to them and say, yes, Boston got slower, but overall in the marathons, we're about right on even where we've been in the past. And we can kind of debunk that, like, well, because it happened here, did it happen everywhere? We can really look through that. And then we can break down by event categories, look at 5K, 10K, marathon, all those different ones. Some things we cannot do. We cannot look at individual result analysis. We cannot say, well, Michael Clemens ran XYZ races over the course of 2023. We don't have those individual results. We also don't have demographics beyond age and gender. We're not able to pull any of that data on their socioeconomic status. That's not brought into the finisher data that we have access to. We also can't give custom reports for other races not owned by a member requesting a report. So we can't have you coming to us and say, well, we want to know about our competitor. Where are they pulling from? Or what are their numbers looking like? We'll do industry overall for you and we'll do stuff on your individual race, but we won't be able to pull other races that you don't own and operate. And then we don't have that raw data. I can't tell you, well, Michael Clemens did your 5K and your 10K over the course of the event weekend, but didn't do your half marathon. That's where we like to empower you all, though. You have that information in your registration platforms, whether it's Run Sign Up, Haku, Race Roster, Active. A lot of those will give you that information that it may just be us talking to you and saying, okay, here's how you can interpret that better. Here's how you can analyze that. We're here to help you with that, but we don't have that data for you to really run a lot of those reports that you may like, but you have the capabilities to run. And it's just really educating you and empowering you to run those reports. So this is really important to know, like these available data fields, we're only looking at timed races here. We can't do some of the charity walks that when you look at Run Sign Up, at Haku, at Race Roster, the data that they may be reporting is going to show you different numbers than our events, because they may have a lot of timed charity walks, or untimed charity walks, or may have multiple events within a weekend that we're looking at it overall as one parent event. So just some things to keep in mind when you're looking at the data that we pull. But it's also important to know that when we're looking at the data and comparing it, we're going to always compare apples to apples. We're not going to say, well, this registration company showed this number. Here's what we showed. Let's compare, or they showed this number in 2019. Here's what we showed in 2023. Let's compare them. we can, and we're going to work with the registration companies to see like how we can continue to make this data better. But it's going to be different data that we're going to have. And it's really important to understand how that data is different and how we're going to utilize what we have. So one example of how we're going to utilize what we have is an infographic that we just put out last week. We're going to continue to put these out month by month. This is a monthly road racing trend within our industry. So it's looking at how many finishers and how many total events we had that were timed and were road races in 2024, in March of 2024 to be specific. So we had nearly 600,000 total finishers in road running timed races in 2024. We know we're going to miss some there that haven't been requested through Athlinks, some of the smaller races. We're going to miss some of those or all of those untimed races, but that's going to give us a bearing of a kind of how many people to cross the finish line in that month. We're also going to be able to see how that compares to March of 2023. We are up overall, but our number of total events are down. It makes sense. We're seeing that a lot of races that are kind of dying out or being replaced. And we can see those changes within those numbers from March 2023 to March 2024. We're also always going to do the finisher by race distance. So we can see that the 5K is the most popular, followed by the half, the 10K, the half marathon, or the full marathon. So, and then what other distances go in there. And then that other category is going to be your different distances that may not fit in within one of those buckets. So we're going to always show you that breakdown by distance. And then we're going to do the largest events by finishers. This is where it's important to note that we're looking at the overall weekend. For United Airlines NYC half, they may only have one event, but the LA Marathon weekend has the LA Marathon, the half marathon, and the LA 5K. So we're combining those events to show that. Same thing for JNA Racing's Yingling Shamrock Marathon weekend. We talked about doing the individual races, but we think it's important for you all in the industry to know what's going on over the course of a weekend. If I'm JNA Racing, yes, I'm looking at what my marathon and half numbers are, but what I'm going to be reporting out is how many people participated over the course of the weekend. So those numbers may have some of the same participants in them, but they're paying twice or they're paying for both races. So we're seeing them multiple times in there, and we will always list those top races. Now, when can you expect this? It's May right now. So you're like, can we bring out April? We wait 3 to 4 weeks after the end of the month. Just that way it allows Athlinks to really update those numbers and give us a really clear picture of what we're looking at for that month. So it's going to take us a little bit. It's not like June 1, we're going to be able to tell you everything that happened in May. It takes a little bit for that data. And I'd rather the data be clean than than get it to you too early and not have all the finisher totals in there or not have an event represented. I would rather have the data be accurate and take it a little bit longer. And we'll be bringing out April in the coming week or two. We're going to wait for one more update from Athlinks to get all of those, especially since the month ended April 27th, 28th. It was towards the end of that Saturday, Sunday was a big weekend of events. So we want to make sure that everything that can get pulled into there. Something else that we're really excited about, our first big report that we're going to be doing is looking at 2019 numbers compared to 2023 numbers. We're always asking, is the industry back? What does it look like now? We want to give a really clear breakdown of what the differences between 2019 and 2023 were based off of event size, based off of state, based off of region, based off of time of year. We're going to be pulling a lot of that data to do our first big report that Running USA brings out, is comparing 2019 to 2023. And this is just a little example of it right here. We can look at the total 5K timed finishers for a timed 5K that were present in 2023 versus 2019. You'll see the caveat at the bottom includes finisher data for events of 500 or more. Once you get into that lower level, it's a little bit harder because we don't know if those have been requested from Athlinks. So we want to make sure, once again, we're comparing apples to apples. But this gives us a pretty good picture that numbers were down in 2023 from 2019. But look at that last column on the right. Average size of 5Ks went up in 2023. We saw a significant decline in the number of events that came back after the bulk of the pandemic. I hate always saying that the pandemic finished, because it never really will be. But once events started to come back, we saw less events come back, and we saw the average size of the 5K go up. So there's less finishers in the 5K, but there's less number of events, meaning the average finisher size went up. We can also look at these numbers for half marathons, for all the different distances. So expect that report to come out late June, early July, where we really have a lot of these graphs for you of looking at where 2019 and 2023 compared based off of timed finishers. Want to make sure we leave a lot of time for questions, but really want to emphasize this: what you get as a member of Running USA. We want to make sure this is a benefit to our members. So for our foundation and contributing members, you're going to get free custom reports. So say you want us to look at something specific within your data and compare the history of your event and go all back through and look at your finisher data. We can do that for you. For foundation and contributing members, that's free. Also, our standard report, so that one that I said is going to come out end of June, early July, that will also be free to our contributing and standard members. For our multiple and single event, our non-members, those are going to cost a little bit. It just is kind of helping us offset that. Thanks to USATF, we have had some funds to cover this, but want to make sure that our time and energy put into those custom reports and those standard reports is supported, and we'll have some cost attached to those. As far as media and academics, we want to be a source for the media. So these will reach out to us. Depending on what you're asking, we may be able to provide that data for free. As an academic myself, I understand that funds are limited, and we want to be able to support your research because it's going to benefit our industry. It's going to benefit us as Running USA to be able to support you as an academic. So let us know. Contact Michael at Running USA, contact info@Running USA, and we can start that. The process for others that want to do that, contact either Michael at Running USA or membership at Running USA for these reports, and we can start working with you on if you want custom reports. And then once that first standard report, it will just be in the member portal. You'll be able to request that report just like you can our previous research and reports that we have in that industry or have in that member hub. So with that, so now it's time for you to ask whatever questions you have for us. I know we have some of them already in the chat. I am going to stop the sharing right there and answer any questions that I can for you.
You want me to throw some at you, Michael?
Throw them at me.
All right. Some I have typed answers to, but still worth bringing up in conversation. Bob and Jackie both asking if gender includes non-binary.
It will, yes. So if a race includes a non-binary category in it, we will have that non-binary category broken out.
And to your point, Jackie, I saw you ask, or oh, maybe it was you, Bob, who said guessing not for older events. Yes, if it wasn't, if it, we're
Yes.
talking 10, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago, where that wasn't an option, we won't have that. But yes, for newer events, yes. The other question from Jackie was, and I explained this in the chat, but I think it is worth repeating. Why isn't race and ethnicity included? And is this something you can all work towards? And I'll take a first swing at that.
Please.
Yeah, it's not included because we are collecting finisher data. So generally, obviously, when you look at results, that is not one of the fields that is listed. However, we feel very strongly about being able to collect that data. So it is an effort that Running USA is making. That's going to be a much more manual collection process. But we need to first ensure races are asking the question. There's a high percentage of events that don't ask that question, so it makes the data somewhat flawed. So that's the first step, and then collecting it from the different companies is the second step. But having this database frees up our resources to be able to chase that, but definitely a priority for us. So stay tuned on that.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I saw Jackie posted races aren't asking that question. And I don't want races to be afraid to ask that question. You can. The more you know about your participants, the better it's going to be. I know we want to streamline the registration process as much as possible so we don't lose people in that process. But finding out the race in that process is valuable just to know that information about them. And it's simple as adding in, we recommend using the census question on that. So that way it's pretty uniform and standard. Adding in that question that in your registration process will allow us as an industry to really collect uniform data.
And to your point, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the future, Jackie. But you just said in the chat, just give folks the option to say prefer not to answer. Absolutely, it needs to be a mandatory field with the option to choose a prefer not to answer option. But you're going to hear a lot about this from us in the coming months, and definitely at conference in February, because we feel the same as you do on this topic. Another question, given that many results for smaller races need to be requested by participants in order for Athlinks to add them, how does that affect the reports?
Yeah, so when we talk to the team at Athlinks, they have told us they feel like they have about 95% of the data. Yes, that means that 5% is missing, but we feel like as Running USA, it's our duty to provide data, even if it is still missing that 5%. So there is going to be some that we may not have the full thing of it, but we're going to be looking to always improve that and to capture even more with Athlinks.
And can you talk about second part of Sean's question? Can you talk about how long it takes for results to be uploaded onto Athlinks?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the event when it's requested. A lot of those will be within 1 to 2 weeks. Like we just had the latest update yesterday from Athlinks that included a majority of the events on April 27th and 28th. If they're chrono track timed, they automatically go in there. So we're talking about races that aren't chrono track timed being within that 2 to 3 week window. And we will still be the system. We've only been using it for a couple months now. So it's going to take us a little while to really see that timeline, and if we maybe need to give it another week, or if we gave it too many weeks, and working with that to make sure we get that out to you accurately, but in a timely manner.
From Michelle at BIC7, will the other distance categories be further defined if requested? For example, Falmouth and BICS are both 7-mile races.
Yeah. We'll do the top for the month will be outlined, but then when we do any kind of reports, our standard reporting will break it down even further. It's a space issue, just making sure we're able to provide as much.
John wants to know if this is only American races or some non-American races as well.
Just American races.
And then, is there any data sanitizing or normalization going on?
Not that I know of. I know that I think they're just pulling that raw data for a lot of it. So I don't think there's any like cleanup necessarily that's going on. And I think it's important to note too, like some timers are going to have like a test of their event. So it's important to realize like we're not counting that as an event. So that's kind of the only, I think, sanitization is looking at. And I think that's what helps us when we look at that 500 or above too. We're not looking at races where or result sets where it may be one person cross that line just to test out the data and it showed up as an event in the system.
Oh, wait, what is the opportunity to correct or supplement data on our own races?
Yeah, I mean, reach out to us. We have what is showing in the finisher data. So like I know for the LA marathon, I had to go into the result. I knew it was a bigger race and I went in and made sure that so LA marathon and the 5K were listed as two separate races in the event. So when we're listing out those top 5 events, we're going to be I'm going to be able to kind of look at it and see making sure we're adding all of it together to make sure we're showing everything. But we're also not going to show did not finish in there because it may not be listed in the finish timing results. So there are going to be a little discrepancies in there. Feel free to reach out to us, but we try to get it as accurate and as close as we can.
Will there be an opportunity to get custom reports for member events?
Yes. Yeah. Reach out to me, reach out to membership. I think on the slide, it has the pricing. We'll also send out with the recording our, the link to our site where you can request those and that process and pricing and all that.
Greg is asking what business intelligence tool we are using.
I don't know I'm not sure what that.
Now that's not Greg. Any further details on that? Oh, Tableau, MS Power. This is Google. It's Google. What's the name of the Google? What is? Yeah, Google Data Studio. Isn't that the name of it? I believe.
Yes, Google Data Studio. And then to run those reports, we do have the opportunity to download CSV files, to download Excel files.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think that is it.
Great. Like we said, we're trying to, this is a new process for us where there's a lot of data there. We're trying to make sure we're utilizing it to the best of our abilities to support you all, and are all ears for any ideas, any thoughts you have on this, and excited to continue to share it.
We have one question in the Q&A. I wonder if you have any insights. How come there are no databases similar to Athlinks nowadays? I think that's a question for Athlinks. They've done a really good job of aggregating this data. I'm sure someone else will figure that out at some point, but at this point, Athlinks has really sort of cornered the market. And can you check what is the fastest marathon ever run by someone from Larchmont, New York?
No, we don't. So we don't. The races, a lot of times when they do the results, some will show the city that they're from, but we don't have the ability to do a single individual.
And I think Bob just made a comment in the chat about these platforms saying that they don't generate a lot of revenue, which is correct. But I do want to point out that this partnership between Running USA and Athlinks represents a significant investment on the Running USA side. So Athlinks is being paid for this data, for our ability to access this data, because we believe that it's valuable. We believe it has a value, and we believe that this is an investment in being able to deliver more to members. So I agree. It's definitely not race registration revenue, but there is revenue being generated here on this platform.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. And we'll keep the conversation going and send you all this information, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.